All right, so um, have you guys been watching The White Lotus? I feel
Oh,
like everyone's talking about it. Not just the show itself,
oh yeah, that book.
but like everyone wants to travel to these incredible places they're showing. Like it's become this whole thing.
Yeah, it's called set jetting, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Set jetting, like jet setting, but to, places you've seen on screen. And apparently it's a huge trend. I was reading that Expedia did a study.
Oh yeah, they found a ridiculous amount of people are booking trips
Mhm.
based on like movies and shows. It was 66% of travelers in 2024.
66%. That's
Ah.
wild. That's like more than half the people traveling are going somewhere because they saw it on a screen.
Yeah, and it's not even like new destinations. A lot of times it's just like a renewed interest.
Right, right. And that's kind of what we're diving into today. We're calling it the White Lotus effect. We've got a bunch of articles here talking about how the show is basically sending everyone and their mother to these luxury
And
resorts.
especially we're focusing on Thailand, right?
Yes. Specifically Koh Samui, where they filmed the latest season. But first, I think we should kind of back up and talk about the overall White Lotus effect. I mean, it's kind of ironic, isn't it?
Yeah, how so?
Well, the show is sort of satirizing this whole world of, like, the ultra-wealthy and their, I don't know, problems. But then people watch it and they're like, sign me up. I want to stay at that resort.
It's funny, right? It's like the show is making fun of these people, but at the same time, it's making their lifestyle seem super glamorous and aspirational, you know?
Totally. Like, who wouldn't want to sip cocktails by an infinity pool in paradise,
Yeah,
even if it comes with a side of drama?
right. And it's not just about the visuals, right? The storytelling is really captivating too. It sucks you in.
Definitely. And let's be real, those Four Seasons resorts are stunning. I was reading that after the first season aired, which was set in Hawaii, the Four Seasons Maui saw this insane spike in website traffic.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. Wasn't it like,
It was like 425%,
yeah,
425%. That's not just a little bump, that's a full-on explosion of interest.
yeah. And the same thing happened with the Four Seasons in Sicily after the second season. The show is like free advertising for them.
Seriously.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder if they knew what they were getting into when they partnered with the show. I mean, talk about a marketing win.
Right. I mean, even the CEO of Four Seasons, Alejandro Reynal, has said that the show has like really boosted their brand. He said something about making luxury travel feel more accessible.
More accessible. Well, I guess if you can afford to stay at a Four Seasons, maybe it is.
Uh-huh. Yeah, there's that. But I think what he meant was that it kind of puts these places on people's radar. Like it makes them think, oh, maybe someday I could actually go there, even if it's a long shot.
I get it. It's like planting a seed. Okay, so now let's get to Thailand, Koh Samui, where they filmed the most recent season. So even before the season premiered, right, there were already reports of this surge in bookings. Like everyone was anticipating the White Lotus effect.
Oh, absolutely. It was all over the travel news.
Yeah, and the Four Seasons Koh Samui, they reported something like a 40% increase in bookings, even before the season started streaming. And their chief commercial officer, Mark Spikert, he's predicting it's going to keep going up like crazy.
Exponentially, he said, right?
Exponentially.
Yeah.
That's the word.
Well, I always take those kinds of predictions with a grain of salt. I mean, it could be temporary hype, but it'll definitely be interesting to see what happens.
For sure. But even if it's a short-term thing, the initial impact is still huge. I was reading that Thai tourism officials are projecting this like 10–15% increase in visitor spending overall and a potential 40% increase in, get this, accommodation prices.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a lot.
It's crazy. Like, good luck trying to find a last-minute deal on a hotel room in Koh Samui right now.
No kidding. But, all this talk about economic benefits and tourism booms, it's important to remember that there's another side to this coin.
You're talking about the potential downside.
Yeah, exactly. Because this kind of sudden surge in tourism, it can put a lot of strain on a place, especially somewhere like Koh Samui.
Right, with the environment and everything.
Exactly. It's kind of a double-edged sword. And it's not just Thailand. I mean, this is happening all over the world. You see it with any popular show or movie that features a specific location.
You're so right. Like, think about The Lord of the Rings and New Zealand. The movies were amazing for tourism, but they also brought up all these questions about, like, sustainability and the impact on the environment.
Exactly. It's a classic example of how set jetting can be both a blessing and a curse. And it's something we have to be mindful of, especially as this trend keeps growing.
I totally agree. It's like we all want to experience these incredible places, but we also have a responsibility to protect them.
Right. And that's a conversation we definitely need to be having.
Definitely. So speaking of amazing places, Let's talk about some other examples of set jetting, and not just from Hollywood. I mean, Bollywood has had a huge impact on tourism in India, too.
Oh, absolutely. So many iconic locations have become super popular thanks to Bollywood.
Like Three Idiots and Pangong Lake, right. I mean, that place became a must-visit destination for fans after that movie.
For sure. And who can forget the fort in Goa from Dil Chata Hai? It's like a pilgrimage site for fans.
Totally. And then you have movies like Zindagi Na Milegi Dobara and even Pathan, inspiring people to take those epic road trips across Spain.
Yeah. And how about the classic Switzerland romance from Dilwal Dulhania Le Jange? That movie single-handedly put Switzerland on the map for Indian tourists.
It's amazing, isn't it, how film and television have this power to transport us to different places and make us want to experience those destinations for ourselves.
Totally. But the question is, can we indulge in that desire responsibly? Can we embrace set jetting without, loving these places to death?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And that's something we're going to dig into more deeply after the break. We'll be right back.
So it's not just about being a good tourist. It's about understanding how much tourism a place can actually handle. Yeah, there's this concept called carrying capacity. Basically, how many visitors a place can handle before it starts to negatively impact the environment or even the local communities.
Right, because it's not just about pretty beaches and fancy hotels. It's about people's lives and the health of the ecosystem.
Exactly. I think a lot of times when people travel, especially for set jetting, they get caught up in the excitement of seeing these iconic locations, and they don't always think about the bigger picture.
It's easy to forget that we as tourists have a real impact on the places we visit. So how do we find that balance? How do we indulge in this wanderlust without, I don't know, loving these places to death?
That's the big question. I think it starts with being more mindful, really asking ourselves, why am I going to this place?
Yeah, is it just to check it off your bucket list or recreate a scene from your favorite show? Or is there a deeper connection you're hoping to make?
Exactly. And once you understand your motivations, you can start making more conscious choices about how you travel and the impact you have.
So let's bring it back to the White Lotus and Koh Samui. We've talked about the potential economic benefits for Thailand, but what about the environmental concerns? What are some of the specific challenges the island is facing?
Well, water scarcity is a huge issue.
Oh, really? I didn't realize that.
Yeah. Koh Samui relies a lot on rainwater harvesting and groundwater, but with more and more tourists coming in, those resources are getting used up faster than they can replenish. It's a finite resource.
I see. So all those luxurious showers and infinity pools are actually putting a strain on the island's water supply.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not just water, there's also the impact on marine life. Koh Samui has these incredible coral reefs and diverse marine ecosystems, but increased boat traffic and pollution from tourism can really damage those habitats.
Yeah, it's we all love those picture-perfect beaches and clear blue waters, but we don't always think about what it takes to keep them that way.
Exactly. And then there's the whole issue of waste management. Thailand has a growing waste problem in general, and it's only exacerbated by tourism.
Right, because more tourists mean more trash.
Yeah. And a lot of islands, including Koh Samui, they just don't have the infrastructure to deal with it all effectively. So you end up with overflowing landfills and plastic pollution. It's not a pretty picture.
It's like the White Lotus effect is highlighting both the beauty and the vulnerability of these destinations. It's kind of bittersweet.
It is. I think it's a wake-up call in a lot of ways. It's forcing us to confront this tension between our desire to experience these amazing places and the need to protect them.
So, what's the solution? Is there a way to find that balance? Can we have our White Lotus cake and eat it too?
Well, I don't think there's an easy answer. But I do think it starts with a shift in mindset, moving away from this idea of just consuming experiences and more towards being responsible travelers.
So instead of just following in the footsteps of our favorite characters, we need to think about how we can leave a positive impact on the places we visit.
Exactly. And maybe that's the real takeaway from the White Lotus. It's not just about where we go, but how we go there and what we do when we get there.
It's like a call to action almost. Okay, you want to experience these incredible places, great, but do it responsibly. Think about the impact you're having.
Right. It's about being more intentional with our travel choices and realizing that we're not just spectators. We're part of the story.
That's such a powerful thought. And it applies to all kinds of travel, not just set jetting.
Absolutely. Whether you're jet setting across the globe or exploring your own backyard, it's about being mindful of your impact and making choices that benefit both you and the places you visit.
I love that. It's about being a good steward of the planet, basically.
Exactly. And I think that's something we can all strive for.
Definitely. So what do you think? Are you ready to ditch the bucket list and embrace a more mindful way of traveling?
I think it's definitely worth considering. After all, we only get one planet, and it's up to us to protect it.
That's a great point. I think we need to remember that the beauty of these places isn't just for us to enjoy in the present. It's a legacy we need to preserve for future generations.
And that's a responsibility we all share.
It's interesting, right? Like we've talked about all these different aspects of set jetting, the good, the bad, and you know how it's influencing travel.
Yeah.
But I think what's really fascinating is like the bigger picture.
Yeah, like how it all connects back to storytelling.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because it's stories that are driving this whole phenomenon. Like we see a place in a movie or TV show, and suddenly we feel this urge to go there ourselves.
And it makes sense, right? I mean, stories have always had this power to transport us to different worlds and make us connect with characters and places.
Right. It's like we're living vicariously through these characters,
Yeah.
and then we want to experience those places for ourselves.
Yeah, it's like that feeling of, I want to be there.
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what we need to remember is that it's not just about us. Like our travel choices have a real impact on the places we visit and the people who live there.
Right, and I think that's where the idea of responsible travel comes in.
It's about asking ourselves, what kind of traveler do I want to be? Do I want to just consume the beauty of a place? Or do I want to contribute to its well-being?
And I think that's a question we should all be asking ourselves.
Absolutely. Because at the end of the day, it's not just about checking destinations off a bucket list. It's about having experiences that enrich our lives and leave a positive impact on the world.
Exactly. And that's something to think about, whether you're inspired by the White Lotus or Emily in Paris or even, your favorite travel blog.
Right. The principles are the same. It's about being mindful, being respectful, and being aware of the impact we have.
So yeah, that's something to ponder. As you plan your next trip, think about what kind of traveler you want to be.
And remember that the beauty of these places isn't just for us to enjoy in the present. It's a legacy we need to preserve for future generations.
Absolutely. That's something we should never forget.
Well, on that note, we're going to wrap up this deep dive. Thanks for joining us.